why is it that human beings, like the most social, highly evolved primates on the planet, would literally rather stare intensely at a smudge on an elevator door than just say hello to the person standing, 10 inches away from them?
Yeah, it really makes no sense on paper.
Right. Like, picture that moment. You step into the elevator, a neighbor squeezes in, the doors close, and suddenly the air just gets thick.
Oh, absolutely.
You are hyper-focused on the humming of the machinery. It's pure, unfiltered dread.
The cognitive dissonance in that exact scenario is, it's truly fascinating because we are biologically wired to connect with our species.
Right.
Isolation is traditionally dangerous for humans, yet in that 10-second elevator ride, the prospect of initiating a casual conversation feels like, well, a high-stakes survival situation. We tense up as if we're facing a predator.
Wow, yeah. Welcome to Mr. English Hub, by the way. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Rachel, your resident expert.
And today, we are jumping into a deep dive on a framework that actually gets right to the heart of that paradox. We're looking at a set of conversational mechanics today.
Yeah, and it was originally designed just to help English language learners navigate everyday interactions.
Exactly. But it accidentally serves as this absolute masterclass in human behavioral psychology for everyone. Because we are going to deconstruct the architecture of small talk.
And we really do need to view it as architecture. We tend to think of conversational charisma as this, this innate magical quality you either have or you don't.
Right, like you're just born with it.
Exactly. But it's not magic, it's structure.
Right.
If you look at small talk not as an awkward, terrifying obligation, but as a systematic bridge, the dread just starts to dissipate.
Bridge.
Yeah, you just follow the blueprints, lay the foundation, and you can cross the gap between two isolated people without triggering that internal stress response.
Okay, so before anyone can have a deep, life-changing conversation about their hopes and dreams, they first have to crack open the door. So let's start with the absolute baseline. What is the lowest stakes way to open a channel of communication when you are faced with that suffocating elevator silence?
Well, you establish a shared reality. You focus entirely on the immediate observable environment.
Like what?
Like the weather, the temperature, the absurdly long line you were both waiting in. This is the foundation.
Which, let's be honest, feels incredibly cliche to most of us.
Oh, for sure.
If we are both standing in a supermarket line that wraps all the way around the frozen food aisle, and I turn to you and say, it's really busy in here today, isn't it?
Yeah.
That feels almost embarrassingly obvious. Like, I know the line is long, you know the line is long. Are we just wasting breath?
Well, let's take that a step further, because you aren't actually exchanging data about the supermarket line.
Okay.
If you think about this in terms of network engineering, you aren't sending a heavy, complex file to the other person. You are just pinging the server.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you're sending a tiny 1-byte packet of low-stakes data just to see if the other node on the network is, online, receptive, and secure.
A social ping. That makes so much sense. There's actually a perfect everyday anecdote in our source material that illustrates this server ping in action.
The bus stop one, right?
Yes. A person is standing at a bus stop on a bitterly blustery day. They don't turn to the stranger next to them and launch into a monologue about their childhood.
That would be terrifying.
Right. They just look over and say, "It is very windy today." The stranger smiles, replies, "Yes, I almost lost my hat," and they just share a brief laugh.
See, from an evolutionary standpoint, that brief exchange and that shared laugh are incredibly profound.
Really? How so?
Well, for hundreds of thousands of years, an unrecognized human in close physical proximity was a potential lethal threat.
Wow, yeah.
Our brains are still wired with that ancient alarm system. By pointing out the wind, you are signaling to their amygdala like, I am observing the same physical environment you are. I am attuned to reality.
I'm not crazy.
Exactly. I am not a threat, and I am approachable.
So you are literally disarming the evolutionary alarm bell. You aren't talking about the wind at all. You are just broadcasting safety.
Precisely. By keeping the observation incredibly brief and utilizing completely obvious environmental cues, you reduce the risk of rejection to near zero.
Right.
You take two isolated nodes and create a tiny, safe connection.
Okay, so your server ping worked. The alarm bell is deactivated. You've successfully survived the chat about the wind.
Hooray.
But here's where the architecture usually collapses for people. You can't just talk about the wind for 5 straight minutes, or the interaction suddenly becomes intensely awkward again.
You hit a wall.
So how do you shift the structure from the shared environment to the actual human being standing in front of you?
You have to advance the mechanics. You move away from the environment and start focusing on personal experience.
Yeah.
But the fatal error people make at this stage is relying on closed binary queries.
The dreaded yes or no question.
Oh, it's the worst.
The absolute ultimate dead end of any conversation.
Because a closed question forces the interaction into a wall. If you ask a colleague, "Did you have a good weekend?" and they simply say yes, the bridge you were building just abruptly ends.
The energy just drops to zero.
Exactly. And worse, the cognitive burden is suddenly thrown entirely back onto you to desperately scramble for another prompt.
Right, you're just left hanging. So the mechanical fix is the open-ended question.
Yep.
Starting your sentences with what, how, or why. There is a scenario in the deep dive material involving a casual chat about a bookstore.
Oh, I love this example.
Yeah, someone mentions they visited a new bookstore over the weekend. Instead of just nodding and letting the conversation die, you follow up with, what kind of books do you like to read?
Perfect.
We've all heard conversation compared to a game of catch. You throw a question, they catch it, and they throw a response back.
We've all heard that metaphor, yeah. But the mechanics of the throw are where people actually fail.
How do you mean?
An open-ended question requires the other person to access their memory, their preferences, and their internal narrative. It forces a deeper level of engagement.
Oh, so it shifts them out of that passive mode.
Right. It shifts their brain out of passive defensive observation and into active participation. They are handing you back data that you can then use to build the next section of the bridge.
Okay, but let me push back on that game of catch idea for a second, because real human interaction isn't a perfectly predictable physics equation.
Yeah.
What happens when you throw a nice, polite, predictable tennis ball and the other person throws back an anvil?
An anvil. Okay, give me an example of an anvil in a low-stakes conversation.
All right, there is a brilliant, slightly unhinged detail in our material that perfectly captures this. Someone is trying to initiate this exact type of intermediate, open-ended conversation at a coffee shop.
Okay.
They see a man sitting there with a beautiful, massive golden dog. It is a textbook opportunity to build a bridge.
The easiest target.
They walk up, open-ended question, ready to go, and ask, your dog is so beautiful, what is his name?
Structurally flawless. It
Yeah.
invites a story. It focuses on the person's interests. It's positive.
Right. But the man looks back at them, deadpan, completely serious, not a hint of a smile, and says, he doesn't have a name. He is a secret agent.
That is just a fantastic disruption of the cognitive script.
The secret agent dog. I mean, the person who initiated the conversation literally froze like a statue. Their brain completely short-circuited.
Of course it did.
Was the guy making a dry joke? Was he completely serious and potentially unwell? Like, how do you handle it when the predictable algorithm of small talk breaks down that abruptly?
Well, this highlights the absolute danger of treating human conversation purely as an algorithm. Human beings are wildly unpredictable.
Clear.
When someone throws a cognitive curveball at us like dry humor or sheer, unadulterated weirdness, our brains tend to freeze because the script we were relying on just failed.
So what's the fix?
The trick here isn't to try and, fix their response or panic. The trick is to accept the new, slightly bizarre reality they just built.
So you just lean into the weirdness. You don't try to correct the dog's employment status?
You embrace the anomaly.
Yeah.
The suggested response to the canine spy in a material is to simply smile, nod, and say, ah, I see. Very mysterious.
That's amazing.
You don't interrogate it. You don't ask to see the dog's government badge. You just acknowledge the curveball without making it awkward. Being surprised isn't a failure of small talk. Navigating that surprise is the actual reward.
Okay, all right, so we've pinged the server, we're utilizing open-ended mechanics, and we're accepting that some golden retrievers work for the CIA.
Exactly.
But how do we escalate this? Like, how do we move from just pleasantly passing the time to creating an actual memorable human connection?
To deepen the architecture, you have to inject a calculated amount of vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Not oversharing, obviously, but advancing to a stage where you offer a light opinion or a small reflection on your own life and invite them to do the same.
Our material warns pretty heavily against mistaking this for deep philosophical debate, though. We are still firmly in the realm of small talk.
Yes.
So no politics, no religion, no deeply polarizing worldviews that are going to set the bridge on fire.
You have to keep the stakes manageable. You are testing the structural integrity of the bridge right now. You aren't driving a heavy freight train across it yet.
Right. A great low-stakes example of this vulnerability is talking about a minor struggle or a harmless goal. Like mentioning that you are trying to learn how to cook Italian food, but your pasta is always turning out too soft,
Uh-huh.
and then simply asking the other person if they have any tips.
And from a psychological perspective, asking for a mundane tip is a masterstroke. You know why?
Why?
Because human beings possess a deep-seated neurological drive to feel useful.
Oh, interesting.
Yet when you ask someone for advice on soft pasta, you temporarily elevate them to the role of expert. It actually triggers a mild dopamine release in their brain.
Really? Just from pasta advice?
Yep. It makes them feel valued and competent, which instantly deepens the rapport between you.
We really do love playing teacher, don't we? But there is another layer to this advanced stage that I find far more compelling than just swapping recipes. It's about observation, and specifically escaping what gets accurately labeled as the fine trap.
Ah, the fine trap. The ultimate modern social script. Hi, how are you? Fine, how are you? Good.
We do it completely mindlessly. We will look someone dead in the eye and say, "I'm fine," while actively stressed, overwhelmed, or having a terrible day.
Yeah.
Why are our brains so locked into that robotic exchange?
It comes down to cognitive load. Modern life is wildly overstimulating. Our brains use scripts like, how are you and I'm fine, as neurological shortcuts.
Just to save energy.
Exactly. If we had to deeply, genuinely process every single interaction and emotion of every person we passed in a day, our brains would literally overheat. The fine trap is a defense mechanism.
Which makes breaking out of it an act of profound cognitive effort. There is a story in our sources about a coworker named Sarah that perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, right, the office story.
Yeah, the narrator walks into the office, and instead of just throwing out the standard robotic, "How are you?" they actively observe Sarah. They notice her posture is tense, she looks physically stressed.
They pay attention.
Exactly.
Right.
So they break the script, they pause and say, "Sarah, you look really busy today. Is everything okay? Do you need a hand with anything?"
Which forces Sarah's brain completely out of autopilot.
Completely. Sarah actually stops typing, sighs, and admits she is drowning under the weight of a massive project. They end up talking for 10 minutes.
Wow.
Now, the narrator couldn't actually do the work for her, but just the act of being noticed, of someone spending the cognitive energy to actually see her and break the script, relieved a massive amount of internal pressure for Sarah.
And at that point, the interaction ceases to be small talk. It transforms into an act of active empathy.
Active empathy, I like that.
There is a metaphor used to describe this progression that is incredibly apt. Small talk is the front door to a big house.
With the front door.
Yeah. You cannot magically teleport into the living room of a deep friendship or a meaningful working relationship. You have to walk up the steps, turn the key, and knock on the front door first.
The front door to a big house. I love the spatial logic of that. But let's look at the reality of the situation for a minute. Even with active empathy, keen observation, and a beautifully constructed foundation, the mechanics of conversation can still just break down.
Absolutely. Things crash all the time.
Right. Let's tackle the two highest anxiety failure points: total confusion and the exit strategy.
The twin terrors of social interaction. Navigating a breakdown in meaning and
Right.
figuring out how to escape.
Let's start with confusion, because it truly doesn't matter if you are a native speaker or if you are learning a new language. We all mishear things or miss a cultural reference.
For sure.
Imagine someone says to you, "My commute was a total nightmare today." If you don't happen to know what the word commute means in that context, or if you interpret nightmare literally instead of figuratively, the entire context of their story is lost.
And the immediate instinct in that moment, driven entirely by social anxiety, is to just nod and smile.
Always.
We desperately want to maintain the illusion of a seamless connection. We don't want to look foolish.
But smiling brightly at a nightmare commute makes you look completely unhinged.
It really does.
Or at the very least, it makes you look like you couldn't care less about what they're actually saying. The instinct to fake it is actively dangerous to the connection.
Which is why the most functional, intelligent fix is to simply admit ignorance.
You just pause and ask, "I'm sorry, what does commute mean?"
Exactly. And people fear this because they think asking for clarification exposes a flaw.
Right, like they failed a test.
But neurologically, it achieves the exact opposite. It signals to the other person that you are actively processing their words. You are invested enough in their narrative that you want to ensure your data is accurate.
Wow, so it's actually a compliment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It proves you aren't just waiting for your turn to speak.
Mm.
It is deeply flattering to be listened to with that level of intent.
No robots allowed. You have to be present enough to admit when you're lost.
All right, but what about the ultimate boss battle of any interaction?
The end.
The end. You've had the chat, you've established safety, you've successfully navigated a confusing word, but now the energy is winding down. The ping has run its course.
You certainly cannot just stand there staring at them in silence until the heat death of the universe.
But you also can't just pivot on your heel and announce, I am leaving now, goodbye. It's incredibly jarring.
Because it violates the established safety protocol. A sudden, blunt exit makes the other person feel dismissed, which immediately retroactively ruins the connection you just spent time building. So our material provides these highly structured, polite exit formulas. Phrases like, well, it was great catching up with you, but I should probably get back to work.
That's a classic.
Or my personal favorite, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but it was lovely talking to you. And then you immediately follow it with a future wish, like, have a great afternoon.
Structurally, those formulas are flawless. They provide a gentle off-ramp.
But let me challenge the honesty of this for a second. Isn't saying a phrase like, I don't want to take up your time, just a polite fiction, like a socially acceptable white lie?
How do you mean?
Because 90% of the time, you are the one who desperately needs to go buy milk or get to a meeting. You are pretending the exit is a favor to them, when really you just need to leave.
That is a very perceptive critique. But I wouldn't classify it as a lie. I would classify it as essential social grace. It functions as a mutual release valve.
A mutual release valve. How does that work?
Even if you are the one who actively needs to flee the conversation, framing the exit around their time communicates respect. It preserves their dignity.
I see.
It allows both parties to disconnect from the server without anyone feeling rejected. You both get to walk away feeling like the interaction was successful and neatly contained.
It basically saves face for everyone involved.
And there is a much deeper psychological insight hidden in this exit strategy, actually.
Oh, what is it?
If you analyze why people avoid initiating conversations in that awkward elevator scenario we started with, it is rarely because they don't know how to say hello.
Okay.
It is almost always because they don't know how to say goodbye. The fear of initiation is actually the fear of being trapped.
Wow. So the dread isn't about starting the conversation. It's the panic of not knowing how to end it without being rude.
Precisely. If you have those exit formulas memorized, if you know exactly how you are going to dismantle the bridge and walk away gracefully, the anxiety of building it in the first place just evaporates. Knowing the exit gives you the absolute freedom to enter.
That completely reframes the entire concept of small talk for me. We have mapped out some serious architecture today.
We really have.
Starting from that initial low-stakes ping to the server using the shared environment to disarm our evolutionary alarms.
Right.
Redden moving into the open-ended mechanics to sustain the momentum, learning not to short-circuit when a conversational curveball like a secret agent dog is thrown our way.
And we looked at deepening the structure with calculated vulnerability and active empathy, explicitly spending the cognitive energy to dodge the robotic fine trap and actually observe the people around us.
And finally, realizing that memorizing a graceful exit strategy is actually the key to unlocking the courage to speak up at all.
Yes.
So here is our challenge to you listening to this right now. Tomorrow, we want you to go out and build a tiny bridge. When you are standing in that supermarket line or waiting in that silent elevator, don't look down at your phone.
Try to resist.
Look at the shared reality. Send that one-byte ping. Say a single sentence about the weather and just see what comes back.
Because if it is true that small talk is simply the front door to a big house, what incredible connections, what hidden stories, or even what life-changing opportunities are we walking past every single day just because we are too afraid to knock?
That's a powerful thought.
Could the quiet, unassuming person standing next to you right now hold the exact perspective you have been searching for your entire life?